Everybody, welcome to Coffee with John. Looking forward to talking with Brian Miller, CEO of ClarityUpConsulting.com. Clarity Up, just say the thing, and author of the One-Page Keynote. How to design a speech that always works, no charisma required. I would say it's one of my favorite books. I have it right here. It's an incredible book, and I want to kind of dive right in. It's your this book, I think, is going to help a lot of people. And the way, and you'll speak on it, but you've spent 10,000 plus hours really doing a lot of the legwork to help people kind of put things in order, not only for the speaker, but to really understand the audience and how to make a speech, have a talk, do a keynote, lead a workshop. I mean, I think you can apply your lessons to every piece of business. I think the book is brilliant. The book is brilliant. And so I want to kind of talk about, because somebody may say, okay, John, well, you're talking about a one-page keynote, but you showed the book and it's almost 300 pages. So, right.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So, but I think it was Winston Churchill or Mark Twain. They're both, I think, quoted, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter speech. And so, it takes a lot of time to get somebody too simple. And I think your book does an incredible job outlining each piece of the mindset of a speaker and the audience, teacher and the audience, however you want to kind of interchange those words, to get to the simple. So never has speaking or keynoting been more simplified to me. And I've been doing it for about 10, 11 years, but always knew there was kind of like a missing piece that you have to kind of learn through doing, but also learn by kind of picking up a book like this. So, so talk about how you got to the knowledge base of how to even put all this together. Because to me, the beauty of a book is, and I can't remember what I paid for your book, whatever I paid for, it doesn't matter. But, $20.
I think the publisher is charging $22 or $23.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm seeing, but that's certainly what they're.
So, you pay $22 for a lifetime of, history to do it the right way. So tell me about how you got to kind of, all the info to write the book.
Yeah, man. First of all, thank you so much for all of the lovely words, both the ones you've said privately and the ones you've said publicly just now. I appreciate it very much. It's always thrilling. I say always, is my second book, so I guess it's always, in terms of twice, thrilling to see somebody actually enjoying and using the thing you spend so much freaking time on. There's nothing like writing a book. It is clear, of all the things I've done in my career, this is twice now, it is the hardest thing to do.
I just want to say too, because one of the things you're referencing is, for people who bought the book early, you had a 3-hour workshop about the book. Where people, it was a Q&A. You kind of went over a lot of the highlights of the book, which I thought was great for any author out there who's kind of thinking about writing a book. It was a great, it was free, and it was a great add-on to the book to kind of bring a lot of the stuff together. And so I thought it was great. Okay, keep on going.
No, I appreciate it. It was fun to do. And so, I mean, how do you get to being able, like, essentially, it sounds like what you're asking is kind of like, how did you become qualified in some way to write the book like this? So for folks who really just only know what the title is, it's worth just talking about what the book actually is, right? It's called the One-Page Keynote, but essentially, this is a book on speech design. And that is it. That is the scope of the book. I have dozens and dozens of books and bookshelves on speaking. Typically, books written about speaking, they talk a lot about presence and performance. They talk about breath control and how to hold your hands and where to stand. They talk about storytelling, gauntlets of books on storytelling. There's books written on how to design the slides properly and all these things. But it's almost impossible, even scanning through the infinite amount of books on Amazon, to find a book fully and completely dedicated to the design of the speech itself. What words, what ideas, and in what order. And this was always the part that I found most interesting when I myself was building my career as a speaker. And then I started getting asked to be a quote-unquote speaker coach. I say quote-unquote because we don't use that terminology anymore, but that was the accepted term. I was being asked to do speaker coaching. And when people were asking me to help them on their speeches, they would expect that I was going to be talking about how often they said like and and ah. They thought they wanted to talk about nerves. They wanted to talk about all of this stuff, slides, and how do I hold my hands. And I just kept thinking over and over, none of that matters if you don't have a killer speech. Like the delivery stuff, this is all ancillary. It's the last 5%. But what about the first 95%? What about the words? And so I became really obsessed with how do we design a speech that works? And when I say works, I'm very specific and very clear in the beginning of the book about what type of a speech this book is to help you design. It's a thought leadership style speech, which is a speech where you're going to get up and argue for an idea and try to convince a group of people, probably strangers, to change their behavior or change something about their life, to take an action, to do something new as a result of your speech, so that your idea spreads through the culture or through the industry or whatever, your community, whatever it is. And so this book is the result of a decade on stage as a speaker myself, as just a full-time, international keynote speaker. The decade previous, where I was a full-time magician touring the world, and then having now worked with hundreds of individuals across 30 content areas and 11 distinct industries and on 6 continents, help them build their speeches. And while, of course, we do work with the occasional motivational speaker, self-help kind of speaker, we specialize in working with experts. So like academics, engineers, scientists, researchers, folks who have to speak to roomfuls of stakeholders. And the results of these speeches matter. It's not just did people get motivated. It's did we get funding to save the whales? Like like this stuff really matters. And so this framework that I outlined and spent years figuring out how am I going to teach this to someone who doesn't have me sitting with them, right? Because we're consultants. We're used to sitting with people and doing this.
Yeah.
How am I going to teach it in a book that someone who's never met me and doesn't have me over their shoulder can read it and do it? I tested these frameworks in the most difficult of conditions. Once in a lifetime, one opportunity, stakeholders in the room, everything's hanging in the balance. This has to work. Yeah. And so that is where the no charisma required came from. I come from magic. I love charisma on stage, be a performer, do clever things, be funny, be interactive. I love that stuff. Love to see a speaker do it. I do it myself.
Yeah.
But most people are not charismatic performers, and most people who have to speak don't have time to become a charismatic performer. So this will teach you how to design a speech that works with or without your personality, essentially.
It's really interesting, and I shared this in your workshop because I was asking a question about it. Is a lot of times when I'm doing keynotes and workshops and talks and things of that nature, I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back, but I get really great feedback. That I made an impact and it was curated and it was customized. But I always feel sometimes that I sounded monotone. People will tell me, oh, you were so inspirational. But I sometimes feel like I'm kind of like talking like how I talk on a normal basis. I don't have really a different way of talking. I talk the same way on my podcast as I do and when I'm speaking as I do, pretty much the same. And so this was a game changer for me because I spend a lot of time on speech design, content. Your book has helped me design it better, get it flowing better. But I was always kind of feeling like something was off with the way I was presenting. And what you said was, not really. It's more because again, my perception, the feedback was great, but my perception was off. That I should be more, I should have more humor, or I'm not Tony Robbins. I'm not jumping up and down on the stage. So I had this kind of, and what you talk about a lot is if your speech is designed correctly, if it is curated to the group, then they're going to hear it differently than you may hear yourself. So can you just kind of talk to that a little bit? Because Yeah, because you said like one of the things that made an impact for me that you talked about was when you said your audience should be kind of staring and silent when you're done. right? Not that they can't stand giving you a standing ovation or things of that nature, but they should be in deep, my talks, I find, again, I'm not talking about myself, but that I want my people in deep thought of intrinsic awareness of that I have hit a nerve of how and where they can change and take simple action. So
Yeah.
when I'm done speaking, I think everybody's more internal, figuring it out, understanding what their next steps are versus like jumping out of their seats. And so, and your guidance to me on that call was, no, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even so much if it's a good or a bad thing. It's what are you trying to accomplish? It's let's know what the metric for success is. It's kind of like when you talk about social media and everybody's looking at likes, or subscribers as the metric. It's like, well, that is a metric. Is that the one that actually that aligns with the success that you're looking for? So, if you come to me and you say, listen, I want my speech to be funnier. People aren't laughing as much as I want them to be. We're not having a conversation about speech design then. We're having a conversation about comedy writing.
Right.
And I can have that conversation. I did comedy magic for a decade. There's a way to write jokes and make them funny. There's even an argument to be made that you don't have to be a particularly funny person to give a funny speech. You can learn the craft of joke writing. But that's actually not what happens to people is they watch, like you said, they watch somebody who happens to be a particularly funny speaker and go, God, my speech isn't as funny as theirs.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'll just go, are you as funny as them? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, then your speech doesn't have to be as funny as theirs. They're like, well, they have so much more energy than me. I'm like, yeah, you would think that I would be a high energy speaker because I come from magic, but I'm telling you, man, John, I speak at some of these conferences, and there's guys out there doing backflips and jump kicks, and I'm like, I'm tame compared to that. And this happened to me. This happened multiple times. I was at a major event with a huge name. I was the least famous person by a mile on this roster. These are names that wrote all the books on all of our bookshelves. I was there by a stroke of luck and, just the right connection to the organizers. And there were folks coming off doing these high energy jump kick style presentations. The audience is freaking out. They're screaming. It was nuts. And then after day one, there were people in the lobby. I was going on day two, so I like to get a read. I was there early. So people are coming out. I'm going, hey, how was today? Like, oh God, today was amazing. It was so good. I said, yeah, what was your biggest takeaway from today? And they're like, takeaway. I don't know. It was just like really inspiring. I go, yeah, but like, what are you going to do like different or like, I don't know, man. I'm just like fired up. And no matter how I asked the follow-up question, I couldn't get a single thing from 8 speakers that they had just heard. And I just go, then what the hell was the point of all of this?
Yeah.
You can't think of a single thing you're going to take away and implement. Then all the standing ovations, all the energy, that's gonna dissipate before you get to cocktail hour. None of that will make it till tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? And so if your goal is to create change, focus on speech design. If your goal is to get the highest marks on the feedback forms as you leave the room to get more laughter, more applause, focus on stagecraft, focus on delivery. And there's no reason you can't do both, but you should prioritize design if you're trying to make a difference. That's the point.
Yeah. I just want to kind of say one thing. One of the things you shared in the workshop that you did was when you put magic into your speech that you wanted to change, the results actually, or maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but the impact went down.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I first shifted from magic into speaking, started to try to make that shift, I didn't have enough content. I was not actually the expert people thought I was. I had a viral TEDx talk about human connection. People assumed I was an expert, but I was really just a magician with an opinion. And so when I started,
by the way, it was a great TED talk. That's how we got connected. Aaron,
thank you.
Posted your TED talk. I watched it, emailed you a couple of years ago. You and asked you to be on my podcast. You were, and then just through the power of staying connected, being on your mailing list, bought your book, yada yada. You're here. Yeah.
It is amazing. There's a whole conversation to be had there about how that all works. But no, so I started doing speaking engagements, and because people were expecting me to be an expert on human connection, I was trying to get rid of as much magic as possible because I wanted to be taken, quote, seriously as an expert. And And the problem was I didn't have enough content. So what I did is I went the other way, and I'm like, okay, then I'm just going to do a bunch of magic and do my best to just throw a couple of messages in there that I've picked up from some books that I read, right? Just like essentially plagiarizing, right? Just like I read some books about this stuff. I'll just say some of those things and do a magic show. And here's the thing. When I started doing a magic heavy speech, I got applause and laughter and standing ovations and all the things I used to get as a magician. But then I never got rebooked. I never got referrals. I never got any extra business. Nobody reached out. Nobody came up to me after and said, God, this is how it changed my life. I didn't get DMs saying I did this and then this happened and thank you so much. It was just, wow, what a fun time, which was no different than being a magician. And when I actually spent the time to learn enough about the field people assumed I was an expert in, that I could actually present it, and I scaled the magic back in my presentation to only the 5 or 6 minutes worth over the course of an hour that were really useful to help me make a point. No different than a speaker might use a story or a live demonstration or a funny video or a GIF or something. When I did that and focused on the design of the speech, the success of the speech went up. I got less laughter. I got less enthusiastic applause at the end, but I would get rebooked every year. There's one organization that had me 11 years in a row, right? I would get referred widely. People would walk up stage side the second I walked off stage and go, I'm on the board of a nonprofit. Our event is next May. We have to have you. How do I get in touch? And so I watched in real time as I could see that there's not necessarily a direct correlation between the visible or audible feedback you want as a speaker and the actual success of the speech. They are simply two different crafts. There's design and there's delivery, and they're not necessarily related.
Right. And design versus, and again, not that the person doesn't have to be good, but the design percentage versus delivery is what?
I genuinely like, listen, if you had to give a talk tomorrow and you only had like, say, I don't know, let's say an hour. Let's say you had to give a talk in an hour. You have 1 hour to prepare. I would spend 50 of those 60 minutes building out the outline of the speech that I was going to give, making sure I had the right ideas in the right order written on a napkin. And then I would spend the last 10 minutes like rehearsing the intro. That's basically what I would do, which is like, I would just design the outline, know that I've got the right ideas in the right order so the speech will, quote, work. And then make sure that you can walk on stage and confidently get the first couple minutes out of your mouth. So that nobody, because if you walk out bumbling and nervous, people will be unsure if you are capable of delivering this. So yes, delivery matters, but not if you've got nothing to say.
Right. So a couple of things. The reason I'm focused on this is because I think that there are people who speak, but there's more people who are scared to speak that have something of impact to say. Your book can teach them a step-by-step design, but I want to kind of talk to that person for a minute who has something valuable to say, who's scared to actually get up on stage because they think they need to be what we see on social media, jumping up. Listen, I love Tony Robbins. I'm not dogging him right now, but he's a specific type, and so I just want to dial into this a little bit so people can say, you know what, I'm gonna actually tap into my courage, knowing I can just be myself because the content will begin to speak for itself. I think your book is like incredible in the way of teaching somebody how to then take that content and design it so you can confidently get up there. But first comes the courage, right? First comes the courage. Your book is the confidence. So just kind of talk to that person for a minute.
Yeah, well, listen, if you're the kind of person who is really nervous to I'll say a few things on this. There's a few different aspects of this. A lot of times that courage we think we need to get up on stage, that comes from that kind of like classic fear of public speaking. A lot of that comes from, what if I'm not interesting enough? What if I'm not engaging enough? What if they don't like me? It's like, if you get the design right, that stuff goes away. We watch it happen to people. We go, when we look people in the eye and go, design it just like this. If you do these ideas in this order, no matter what else you do up there, if you just get these words out in this order, it will work. and they're like, oh, great. Like all of a sudden, a lot of that like lack of confidence goes away because now they're confident in the structure. Like structure gives you confidence, and a lot of times that courage you think you need, you need because you actually don't know if it's going to work. That's why you need the courage to go try it, right? But let's say that, there are some people that no matter what design they do, no matter what, they're going to be nervous. And that makes sense. I've used the example before. This is, I'm sure somebody who's an anthropologist will tell me that this isn't quite right, but forgive me. I'm not an anthropologist. Like if thousands, like if you're going back to caveman eras, cave woman, cave people eras, like if you were standing with your back to a wall and there were 100 people facing you, you were about to die. Right? Like there's no other reason. They were about to kill you. And so there's a reason that we are still nervous to get up in front of a room with our back to a wall and 100 people or 200 people staring at us. It is a weird thing for a human being to do. We're not really meant to be doing this. So being nervous makes sense. I would say this, if there's anything that's going to help you not necessarily be less nervous, this might even make you more nervous, but if there's anything that's going to help you go do this, it's this. There are people who are confident presenters who know nothing about your content area, and they are teaching your content to the public. They are influencers. They are motivational speakers. They are people who mean well. I'm not saying they're poorly intentioned. They mean well. They're trying to make a difference. They're often trying to make things better. They are not experts in what you are an expert in, but they were confident presenters. They are explaining your field to the public, and they're getting it wrong. We need experts like you to work up the courage, to get up on stage, to get on social media, to get in front of people and explain your field properly so people can take good action rather than misguided action.
Yeah. Yeah. And so somebody who's listening to that right now, their first step is what? Yes, buy your book, but I'm saying that, not that I'm not saying that you would have said that, but what is their first step?
Yeah, the first step is figure out who you're speaking to. Who are you trying to make an impact for? Most people are either speaking to everyone or they're speaking to no one. Right? They're either speaking as if, and a lot. I mean, this is not just in sales. You probably talk about this a lot. That kind of like, people are trying to sell to everyone kind of thing. But this isn't just a thing that we say. Like this actually happens. I sit in calls with new clients who are working on a talk, and I say, "Who are you? Who is your talk going to be for?" And they're like, "Well, this could just benefit everybody." They say that all, and I'm like, but you're not giving a talk for everybody. You can't reach everybody. So first, who are you trying to serve? Who is this really for? And then, who are they already? What do they want? What do they believe? What are they struggling with? What do they fear? And more importantly, what do they think they want? What do they think they're struggling with? You probably know that the thing that they want is wrong. They should want something different. They want the wrong thing. Right? Like it's like this. We used the social media example earlier. People want subscribers. They want likes. And you probably, if you're a really good person, like if you're a good social media strategist, you probably know that what they actually want are leads, right? Yeah. But when you start talking to them, if you say you want the wrong thing, they're going to shut down. The wall's going to go up. You just told them that they're wrong. People don't like being told they're wrong. So you have to start with what they want and start with what they think the problem is, and deeply understand where they're coming from and meet them at their own worldview. You have to meet people at their worldview. It's why, and I hate to go political here, but it's so hard not to these days. If you think back to the 2016 election, the election in America was over before it started, and it ended when Hillary Clinton called everyone supporting Trump a basket of deplorables. No one has, and I don't care what side of political spectrum you're on, who you voted for, she lost the election when she said the words basket of deplorables. Because as soon as you call the people you're trying to talk to, you're trying to change their behavior. She's trying to get votes, trying to get them to vote for her. As soon as you call them a basket of deplorables, they're not listening. They're going to tune out. maybe you could meet them where they're at with some empathy, with some understanding, and eventually help them understand why the way that they're going about trying to get the thing they want isn't actually going to help them, and convince some people to come vote for you instead. Maybe you could, but certainly not if you start with calling them names.
Yeah.
But most speakers don't do this in that egregious of a way. Like, speakers don't come up on stage and go, "You're idiots, you're wrong." But they do accidentally. They walk up on stage and start with something that's so far out of the audience's worldview that it misses them or offends them.
Yeah.
And the speaker never even realizes that they lost the audience. So that's what I would say is start with deeply understanding who you're speaking to. I'll close this little diatribe here by borrowing kind of a line from a mentor of mine, Julian Treasure, hero of mine. He and I have a lot of very similar ideas and have published around some similar things. And he and I both, like, he wrote, like, he gave a very famous TED talk about speaking, but his work is actually about listening. That's what this book is.
Yeah.
This is a book about speaking that's actually a book about listening. The entirety of my speech design system is about learning to listen to the people you're speaking to so you can speak in a way that makes sense to them.
It's great. It's great. The book is a must read, must have for every bookshelf. If you want to, if you're speaking, whether you're on a stage or you're just speaking to a room full of 3 people at a business, it's great. It's a brilliant, brilliant book. All right, quick speed round. Book that made a big impact on you. You got a bunch of books behind you.
God, so many of them. Book that made a big impact on me. The War of Art. I know it's a classic example. Stephen Pressfield.
One of my favorite books.
Yeah, I mean, just absolutely amazing. Let me give you a fiction book, though. Hardly anybody in our space goes to fiction. The Phantom Tollbooth. Classic of children's literature. It's written for middle school aged kids, kind of like 8 to 12, to encourage them to have a love of learning. It's beautiful. It's like an Alice in Wonderland style, wordplay, goofy, metaphysical. I've gifted it to more adults than I have to kids. The Phantom Tollbooth.
All right, I'll check it out. Yeah, Stephen Pressfield's. I've read most all of his business books. They're great.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
If you could have coffee with anyone living or dead, who would it be and why?
Coffee with anyone living or dead. Probably either Pete Townsend, probably the greatest songwriter in rock and roll history, absolute genius. Just want to be like, how, man? Yeah. How did you do it? Or Steve Martin, my hero in entertainment, why I got started in comedy magic.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah. Finish this sentence. One thing everybody can do to become a better listener is
shut up.
Yeah. Tell everybody where they can buy your book and connect with you, Brian.
You can go to One-Page Keynote or theonepagekeynote.com. Either of them will get you there. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Brian Miller Speaks.
Think Big Community. This is I think a must have for your bookshelf. I have the hard copy, the Kindle copy. I've already bought many copies for people, specifically my team. So they all have it as a new reference book for me. Can't thank you enough. This has been a great resource for me and my business, and I'm glad we got connected. Thanks to Aaron Chernow for posting your TED Talk many years ago, and for being on my podcast a while ago. And this was great. So thanks. The book is great. I wish you all the best with it. Tell everybody one more time where they can connect with you.
Connect with me on LinkedIn at Brian Miller Speaks.
Great. You can reach me at johndwoskin.com. Brian, thanks. This was awesome. Appreciate it.
John, thanks so much for having me.